Welcome to the Love Dog Podcast. I'm your co-host, Raina Butcher, here with our host, Dr. Sarah Hensley, the owner, CEO, and founder of the Love Dog Podcast. You can see her at thelovedog.com, all of her services. Hey.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I've been better.
Been better,
but that's okay. I'm here and I'm excited, for today's episode, especially because it's really about you guys.
Yes, it is.
Something that we've been wanting to do for a while.
We're here to answer your questions.
Yes. So as you know, Dr. Hensley has a free Facebook community that anybody can join.
Yep.
And
I moderate it.
Yes. And there you can go get support from others that may be going through some of the similar circumstances that you and your partner are going through. Or if you're single, you can get advice, support there. And then, of course, Dr. Hensley goes in and answers questions when she's able to. So we thought it'd be a great idea to take some of those questions from the Facebook group and answer them here.
Yes.
Semi-live on today's podcast.
Yes.
So all of your burning questions, and I think I picked a slew of them. I think a lot of them are general enough that it'll answer a range of other people's questions that we might not get to. Of course, and it's not going to be a surprise to anyone, so many questions about the dismissive avoidant.
Of course. And the fun thing is that I haven't seen the questions.
Yeah.
So I get to kind of be on the spot. I like the challenge.
Yeah, I love it too. It's an interview.
It's like coaching.
Yeah. I get to interview Sarah today, sort of.
Whoop, whoop.
Okay, so we'll get started right out of the gate. And of course, we're going to keep everybody anonymous. We're not going to say any names, just to protect the people in that group. So, first question. Why, when you bring up something with a DA and they do really good for a few days, that they go back to doing what they were doing before shortly after? I even used positive reinforcement when I saw that he was doing really well. I was talking to him about communication and how I feel more connected when we text throughout the day and how I need consistency, not perfection. Now today, he's barely even texted and going back to old behaviors.
Yeah, this is actually a common question that I get, and there's a very simple answer for it. It's because they're spending a lot of time in the nervous system state of freeze, or this like dorsal vagal shutdown, and one of the triggers of the dismissive avoidant is meeting expectations of others. Because remember, they're hyper independent, they really want to preserve their autonomy, and they almost have this like spirit of rebellion when they're asked to do something. They almost makes them want to do it less. And so what they try to do is they try to meet the need of their partner, but when they're doing that, they're kind of trying to white knuckle through their nervous system around feeling burdened, around feeling trapped, around feeling like the expectation is too much. And then when essentially they hit a wall, when they are out of self-regulatory ability, they just go back into that freeze state where they don't feel like they can do it. It's just their nervous system guiding them back to their old patterns. And so that is why I talk so much about capacity building in my coaching program, where we work with the nervous system to be able to make real baseline changes in how your nervous system functions around intimacy. And when you make those baseline changes, then you're able to sustain better behavior, right? More secure behavior.
Right, and be more conscious of the behavior.
And be more conscious of the behavior. But you're in a state of safety in your nervous system, which allows you to be very deliberate and allows you to be very connected and much more aware of your partner's needs. And so dismissive avoidants definitely have those blinders on, where when they were children, they were sort of pushed into hyper-independence too soon. They were left alone a lot. They didn't feel like they had a really great guide in their development. And so the attention system of the brain, called the reticular activating system, or the RAS, really becomes very self-directed. And so they are very hyper-focused on meeting their own needs above everybody else's. And of course, that tends to kick in once commitment and longevity are, at play. And until they do real capacity building work, just telling them to do something different isn't going to work, because they can only push through those, nervous system states and sort of use their self-regulatory capacity to do so for so long.
Right.
Self-regulation is like a muscle, and we eventually hit a wall in fatigue. So that's really what's happening.
So other than, going to your website and checking out your services for something like this, short-term resolution for this specific person asking this question, of course, without giving away, all your tips and tricks and secrets, what would you suggest?
Well, I might suggest it might be time to go into a boundary space around what you need, and maybe not just around what you need, but around them doing the work to try to understand what is going on within them that keeps them in that hyper self-focused space. Really getting to the bottom of that. And I mean, if you do, you're going to figure out it's a problem with the nervous system around intimacy. But having the boundary around getting the help.
Yeah.
Right. To be a better partner instead of having the boundary around the behavior, because again, they're just going to do what they did before, which is try to push through, fatigue, and then give up and go back to old patterns, really without even recognizing that that's what's happening.
And I think that's why achieving your own attachment security first is so important, because then you're more apt to be able to set those boundaries without the fear of betrayal or abandonment.
Right. And if I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. If asking for what you need pushes someone away, they were never going to meet the need anyway. So the point of a relationship is to be happy and to not abandon yourself while also having reciprocity, right? But if you're afraid that it's going to push them away, then what's the point of being in a relationship with them? Then you're just doomed to be in a relationship where someone consistently cannot meet your needs. And then you would be abandoning yourself.
And if you've been listening or following Dr. Hensley for any amount of time, then you know that one of the big indicators for dismissive avoidance to change is loss.
Yes. They do not love your boundaries at first. They may complain about them, but ultimately, at a subconscious level, they respect your boundaries. They absolutely do not respect boundaryless people because their boundaries around intimacy and their time and their space are so strict.
Right.
So when they see you dropping your boundaries to kind of hang on to them, quote unquote, it kind of gives them the ick.
Yeah.
And so they respect you when you're like, no, this is what I need. And you actually are showing them in that boundary space that you are okay without them. Because in that boundary space, your job is to work on regulating your nervous system around the space, meeting your own needs, and standing strong in what you need.
Yeah.
And then escalating the boundary if appropriate, right? If they're not moving the needle in your direction. So I think that subconsciously they see that and they're like, oh, okay, well, I get it. She's not playing around anymore, and good for her. She's not totally dependent on me. What? Or he's not totally dependent
that's really
upon
attractive.
me. What? Yeah, that's attractive to them. So it kind of ignites their attraction a little bit. Not to the degree of like the fearful avoidant who would get very anxious and flip from avoidance to anxiety, but there's a level of respect that you gain when you set your own boundaries, because they don't like people that are needy.
Yeah, and there's a level of respect you gain within yourself too.
Absolutely.
Like it's really powerful. Like I wish people could understand, like, and again, we always bring up our one little beautiful little beauty provider that we have that we share in common with. And I'm like, girl, if you only knew how much power you had.
Yes.
Like the power lies within you. And
she's so pretty and kind and
successful. And I mean, we've said it over and over, and we just love her so much. And I'm just like, when she talks to me a little bit about our relationship, I'm like, girl, you hold the power, use it. And she just doesn't know how. And I think that that happens to a lot of people, they just don't know how to access their power. And gosh, if we only knew how powerful we all were, But anyway, all right, moving on to the next question. Dr. Sarah Hensley, I would love your advice. After about 18 months together, I told my DA boyfriend that I needed more consistency. I didn't fully understand attachment styles at the time. After I said that, he acted normally for a few days and then started avoiding me.
Yeah.
The same answer I think might apply here. After I said that, he acted normal. We basically broke up, even though it wasn't said, but he never cut off all contact.
Oh, gosh. Classic.
Classic DA.
Classic.
The longest I went without hearing from him was about 2 weeks. Since the middle of February, there's been a lot of progress. That's good, especially in the last 6 weeks. But it's mostly been 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Again, lots of traits here of the DA. We've gotten together many times as friends, and I know he still cares. How can I ask him what he wants without scaring him off?
You should not be worried about scaring him off. if you're confused, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, again, when you ask them for a need or when they perceive criticism, they're eventually going to shut down and pull back a little bit more because their nervous systems just, they can't take it. Their wound of defectiveness is so strong. It's tied to so much internalized shame. And when they feel like even in the slightest that they haven't, quote, gotten it right for you, then their wound is activated and you're going to see a pullback eventually, even if you see short-term improvement. And so I would say what you're in is a situationship, and that is obviously very unfair to you if it's not what you want. I'm glad you've seen a little bit of progress, but if it's not where you want it to be, you have to make that known.
After 18 months together, that's a long time.
That's a long time. And listen, guys, people will waste years of your life if you let them. You can't let them waste your life. There are people out there that can meet your needs, that are emotionally available, that are secure, that can provide you with what feels good to you inside of a relationship. And so the question you need to start asking yourself is, what is going on with me that I am so attracted to someone who doesn't want me in the way that I want them to want me?
Exactly.
And so it's time to start doing your own work. I would just straight up ask, and a maybe is a no.
Yeah.
Take a maybe, take a him-haw as a no.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do. He's going to talk around it. He's going to give you a I don't know, or he's going to give you a this reason or that reason, or why put a label on it, or, things are going so good, let's not ruin it with that conversation. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just skirting around
he's probably going to skirt around it, but you need to ask.
Yeah.
And you need to be direct with what you want. Don't worry about scaring him off. Worry about your own needs being fulfilled.
Well, and it's like we've talked about so many times, the moment that you get rid of the things that really aren't meant for you, all the things that are come into your life.
100%.
Yeah.
Because, my view is like God is not going to send you someone that is truly your compatible partner that you could have a great life with if you're just going to fumble them with your own insecurities.
Yeah.
It's not going to come your way. God's law of attraction doesn't work that way, in my opinion.
I agree. Okay, so moving on to the next question.
Okie dokie.
I love asking these questions because I already know all the answers to them. Is it common for a DA to have narcissistic characteristics?
I wouldn't say it's common, no. I think that most DAs are very kind. I think that most DAs have good intentions. I think most DAs are incredibly not self-aware, and so there's no malice associated with their behavior. It's more of a limited EQ and capacity issue. EQ being, emotional IQ. And so no, I would say absolutely not. But can some of their traits hurt and look a little narcissistic? Maybe a tad. And I would say the one that is probably the hardest one to look past and forgive, or that will remind you of a narcissist, is the fact that they can lie to get out of conflict. I actually had a couple recently whose DA, that was one of the biggest issues they had, was that the DA partner was just constantly telling little white lies about stupid stuff or lies of omission, just because in their mind it's like any little thing that could possibly bring up a conflict, they want to avoid that, so they would rather lie or omit something.
Right, or where they feel so defective.
Right, where they feel so defective.
It's a defense mechanism.
Better for them to hope it doesn't get found out or whatever.
Right.
And it might be something small, which is, to the partner, makes them think like, why?
Yeah, why would you lie about that?
Why would you lie about that? But to them, it's just like keep the peace over everything else. Number one need for the DA is peace, harmony, lack of criticism, lack of conflict. But it is an unreasonable expectation for intimate, close relationships, especially marriage, to be without those things.
Sure.
Because you can't have true intimacy without
Conflict?
bumping up against things
without
that
being
are
different
difficult.
than someone else, and then deciding whether you want to work through those differences.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say DAs sometimes, not all the time, can come off as manipulative because people view their withdrawal as like a stonewall.
Right, their lack of care. It's like lack of care.
It's like a lack of care, and you don't have empathy for me. But what people don't realize is, no, it's really just a true capacity issue again with their nervous system going into these freeze episodes or flight episodes, or sometimes in their defensiveness, a fight response, and they don't know how to control it, and they don't know how to work with their nervous system. And it just, they always get in the cycle where they're disappointing their partner then makes it known that they are disappointed in them. That hits the defectiveness wound and the shame, so they get defensive and or sometimes people-pleasing, but that's short-lived. Then you get the withdrawal no matter what. And so they think the withdrawal means you're being cold, you're being callous, you don't care about me. They very much do care. In fact, a lot of dismissive avoidants in their withdrawal period are ruminating. They're intellectualizing their emotional experience because they don't know how to feel their own feelings. But they're very concerned. They just don't know what to do.
Right.
A narcissist, they are trying to hurt you. Their motive is to have the upper hand and to manipulate you, to try to know that they have power over you, to try to control you. And so, yes, narcissists might use things like stonewalling to try to get you so upset that you will cave and fawn and kiss their you-know-what to try to get back in their good graces. Whereas a DA isn't looking for that.
No.
And so I would say the majority of them, absolutely not. And narcissists can appear with a fearful avoidant attachment style. In fact, I think fearful avoidance is closer to narcissism than it is the dismissive avoidant, because fearful avoidants are way more manipulative.
Yes.
If they're highly insecure.
And have a higher reactivity
Yes.
rate.
Much more reactive than the DA.
And really know how to hit below the belt.
They can hit, and this is not all fearful avoidance. A lot of fearful avoidants don't hit below the belt, but the ones that do, they hit hard. Like you hit them, they're going to punch you back 10 times harder.
Yeah.
And so, no.
That makes me crazy.
I used to be one, so I know.
Oh, me too. Sometimes it still creeps up. Okay, moving on. Again, guys, this is just another episode about the DA. Can someone change into a DA after failed relationships? Everything we get taught is that people have poor upbringing and want to blame parents. But what if a failed relationship causes a person to be dismissive?
That's a really good question. If we're really looking at the science, the propensity was always there. So attachment is on a spectrum, and people can slide towards security or further away from security. So there has to be that propensity or that predisposition from childhood there, but was it maybe a small predisposition, and inside of a healthy relationship they would have been very secure? Possibly. But then they get into a relationship where someone is very unhealthy or insecure, and it slides them more down the spectrum. So really the science says that adult relationships can exacerbate pre-existing propensities for a specific attachment style. But we don't change attachment styles based on a relationship. Or we don't go from secure to insecure based on a relationship. You have to think about it as like there was some predisposition there. Because remember, if you were truly had a fully secure foundation, people don't end up in those dysfunctional relationships. Truly secure people have a great relationship with themselves, and they have good boundaries, and they know what they deserve, and they aren't terribly afraid to face the pain of detachment. So when they start experiencing red flags, their nervous system, which is used to living in safety, then comes out of safety, and to them that feels really bad, and they can very much pinpoint that it's that relationship or that partner's behavior, and they're like, whoa, no, I don't like that. That doesn't feel good to me. I'm not putting up with that, right? Whereas people with insecure attachments, when they're tested in those ways, it often activates the very wounds that make them then try harder and attach more, right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Like a propensity was there, but then, a relationship exacerbates that. And in terms of a DA propensity, it could be that, the relationship started out really well, and then the DA just deactivated like they would in a relationship that got too serious for them, or in which they really did care about the partner. Because for the DA, oftentimes the more that they care about the partner, the more DA they are, because that level of intimacy and attachment is what triggers them.
Right, it's what scares them. I have a follow-up question. So for those people, say, who are married, right? So when they got into the marriage, maybe they were more insecure, but they've done a lot of healing work and they're on their way to secure attachment. And their partner is lagging behind. But there's things like finances and children and all these other things involved. I know that there are so many variables and nuances there that make it difficult, even when you reach secure attachment, to maybe get out of a marriage.
It's the toughest decision,
for
sure.
But what would you, I guess, advice-wise, what would you tell those people that are maybe in those circumstances? Because I think there are a lot of those people, especially as attachment becomes more trendy, I guess, or, you've put it on the map, baby girl. I'm just saying, as people become more aware of attachment styles and relation to it and really wanting to achieve their security, for those people who have been in these long marriages, what would you say to them?
I would say, obviously, stay focused on your own healing. Know that you can't control anyone else. Make a real pros and cons list of staying and evaluate your own values and evaluate what you feel like would essentially be tolerable or livable. Like, what would the relationship have to look like to meet a standard where you feel like you could stay? Maybe it's not getting everything you want, but what would feel acceptable to you, right?
And I always try to think, I would always tell somebody who asked me this question when I was coaching is try to imagine yourself in your single parent life and what that would look like. Would you be a better parent? Because we've spoken on this before, when we got out of our past relationships, I was actually a better parent.
I was a tremendously better parent.
Because I wasn't so consumed with all the other
and triggered
things.
constantly, which pulls you away from your children. I mean, my oldest daughter and I had this conversation just 2 days ago. She said, "Mom, you were really emotionally unavailable when I was a kid." And I was like, "I know, baby, and I'm so sorry," because
that breaks my heart.
It does break my heart, but I was.
Yeah,
because
I was
too. My nervous system was a freaking wreck, and it was constantly
you were just consumed with yourself.
Yes, and there was so much pressure that was put on me about the house had to be perfect and the kids had to be perfect.
Oh yeah,
and
you were
dinner
very
had
granola
to be
back then.
Yes, and it was, all of these high standards that he had. And he would devalue me a lot about not meeting the standards. I could never meet the standards, right? And so I would be doing things like frantically cleaning the house before he came home, or and then if my daughter's like, "No, play with me," then I'm like, "No, I can't," right? Or there was some major crisis going on that was killing me on the inside. And I was just in another world. My mind was just in another world, just trying to cope. I wasn't present. Yeah. And, I have to live with that for the rest of my life, that I missed so many joyous moments that I'll never, ever get back. And I'm doing everything humanly possible to make up for that with my daughter. And I think Gabby now would tell you I'm very emotionally available. And that we've worked through our stuff, and she's continuing to work on her attachment. But you can't get those years back. And do you really want to go to your deathbed never feeling like you know what love really is? Do you want to do that? I saw my dad do that.
Yeah. No thanks.
I don't want to do that. Yeah. And now I see my mom, who is freaking beating pancreatic cancer and getting, another second, third chance at life. I mean, she's been battling this for 5 years and she's still in a really great place. And it's just I wish she would meet someone, because my dad did treat her really poorly. And then my mom and dad's dynamic just was not good, between them. And so neither of them were happy.
Yeah. One good love. I'm telling you, Neil Diamond song, it will speak to the heart, my friend. One good love is all you need to change.
I can't imagine not having my second marriage. I can't imagine trying to make it work for the kids. I would probably be just limping along in life.
You'd be a mess, girl. You'd be a mess. And listen, I'm a product of a divorce at an older age, and it was way worse. Just take my word for it. I would have much rather my parents called it quits way earlier on,
because you're way more attuned and you understand so much more.
Yeah, and you so much more damage is done. So if things aren't the way that you want them now, in a marriage and you've been married maybe for, I don't know, maybe 10 years, which is a long time. I'm not discounting that. But don't let it be 30 years like my parents.
Yeah.
And then 2 months shy of their youngest, I'm the baby of 4, 2 months shy of the youngest 18th birthday. They're like, okay, we're getting a divorce now. And it was like my world just turned upside down at a time in my life that was really pivotal for like going into adulthood. And so I think, again, my advice would just be to really sit down and try to imagine what your life is like. And even though there are hard things to imagine in terms of single parenthood and raising children, quote unquote, on your own, but I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. And I think it's important to try everything first. Try everything. But sometimes people aren't willing participants to try that hard.
Yeah.
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 Or they just, especially, I hate to say it, I hate to pick on the DA. I feel like we're just dogging the DA, but
You said some good things about
They're the
DA.
least likely to be like, okay, I'm going to do the deep work. Because they can't even really conceptualize what the deep work is, right? And they have to get in front of the right person to be able to really get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. Moving on. So my husband, whom has avoided me for 2 to 3 months at this point, girl.
What? What?
Your husband? Okay. Tells me he doesn't know if he wants to work on our marriage or not. Doesn't know what he wants, is what he always says. So I told him, I need something. I need something. I can't just sit in limbo forever. That's fair.
Very fair.
So he told me back in early June that he would have an answer for me by the time I came back to where I was living. He continued to avoid my requests for clarity. Then told me the other night that there are many issues, but to make it easy, he just wants me to live on my own, in my own world, and by choice, he'll live in his. And I acknowledged how much that hurt me. And I asked him if he would maybe help me understand more. And then he ghosted me again.
It's a giant no.
Honey.
This person, I hate to tell you, sis, he's very dysfunctional, very insecure. That sounds like a strong DA. And a maybe is always a no.
Yeah.
If it's not a hell yes, it's a no at this point. It's time. I would initiate the divorce.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Get ahead of it.
She says, so my question is, where do I go from here?
Call an attorney. Lawyer up. Protect yourself. Start working on healing your attachment so that you can process this effectively and grieve this relationship effectively, and that you can become a better person as a result of what happened instead of someone who lives in pain and loss that they don't know how to cope with.
Yeah, and think of it this way. You spent 2-3 months being stonewalled. Think about the progress you can make in 2 to 3 months in terms of making a real concrete decision to get out of something like that. Because 2 to 3 months of being stonewalled is just as painful. And then you don't.
That's abusive.
And then you end up. Yeah. Then
that's
you end up in the same
that
spot.
Is abuse.
Yeah, you end up in the same spot you were to begin with. At least if you take 2 to 3 months to take action to get out, you're somewhere new. And even though that new place is scary and unknown, gosh, it's got to be better than I could not.
Anything would be better
stonewalled.
than that.
I would lose my mind if Josh stonewalled me for 3 months. I would be a crazy person. I'd be like throwing fists and stuff. I'd be like, you will talk to me. You will.
It's just so abnormal
Yeah.
for any marriage. It's just so dysfunctional. And I get it. It sometimes you don't see their dysfunction until you're way deep in. But oftentimes what people with more attachment anxiety will try to do is just justify or minimize. And we can't do that. We can't justify it. We can't minimize it. 2 to 3 months is abusive, and it's a hard no, and you need to put all the eggs in the basket of moving on and reaching your own security, because there's somebody 10 times better than that dude.
Yeah.
100 times better than that dude.
Yeah.
I don't even go hours really without talking to my husband.
No,
maybe a handful of hours, but I always try to text and check in.
Yeah.
If we've got our own things going on during the day, like we text each other and check in, and then we have our morning rituals. We have our evening nighttime time. Like I can't imagine a marriage that disconnected.
Right. And somebody's saying, like, he's pretty much giving you the answer.
He's giving you the answer.
Like, he's saying, hey, you go live in your world and I'm going to go live in mine.
That's not a marriage, right? Dissolve it and move on. He's just too scared. He's too much of a coward to say no. And that is a classic dismissive avoidant trait.
Yeah.
They don't want to be the ones that end it because they feel guilty about it. So they want you to end it. They'll push you to the brink so that you end it. But that's a very common.
Don't feel guilty for that.
No,
take our word for it.
No.
Do not feel guilty.
You shouldn't have an ounce guilt about that. I would be partying all the way to the attorney's office on that one. And I'm sorry, sis. That's really, really tough. I want to have empathy. I just need you to hear me really straight when I say it's a no. Move on and move on now.
Yeah. So this one's a little long. Okay. I'm really sorry, guys. I really spent like an hour going through all the questions last night. They just all happen to be
they're usually
DA
all
related
about the DA.
And again, explain that, Doc, about how
it's because they're baffling.
Yeah,
they're baffling.
Well, and most of their partners are the anxious ones. So
right,
they're the
and
ones
so they have high
seeking,
anxiety. DAs are gonna make anybody anxious, even if you have a twinge of attachment anxiety. Like even a fearful, leaning really dismissive will get very anxious with a DA.
Right,
and sometimes that's very foreign to them because they're used to staying over in their avoidant side. So they're like very, it's a very new feeling to be this anxious, and they mistake their anxiety for excitement and attraction, but it's not. It's fear. Right? And so
and a red flag.
Red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
All right. I'm about to end a relationship with a DA partner. I'm FA and doing the course and plan to spend some time trying to heal myself and become more secure. I will work on the boundaries and self-regulation, cognitive reframing like the course says. I just have some questions. 1, I've heard that it's actually difficult to work on these things when you're single because they are relational concepts. I'm trying to develop a more secure attachment. So how do I know that I've achieved that when I'm single? Like, how do I know when I'm ready to move on with a new relationship? That's the first question.
I get this question all the time. So first and foremost, it's a lie that you can't do the work because these are relational concepts, because the work requires repetitive practice of these things in other situations throughout your life, moving through your own world every day.
And you don't just have romantic relationships.
Right. So like, let's just say we're talking about like the metacognitive work. You can't just wait to become an observer of your thoughts related to your relationship, because then you're never going to develop muscle memory around being a third-party observer of your thoughts all the time, which is what needs to happen. You need to have that level of muscle memory so that when you get triggered, it's so ingrained in you to be monitoring your thought process that you can do it even when you're triggered. Right? So you don't need to be in a relationship to do that. You can do that standing in line at the grocery store. I mean, I'll give an example of like, if you've ever been in a hurry and you run into the grocery store, you just got one item and you get behind somebody and it's like an old lady who's like paying with pennies or something, or like writing a check, and and you're just like, gosh, like, come on, lady, it's 2025. Who writes a check? That's an opportunity for you to observe your own thought process and to be like, well, I consider myself a patient person. I guess I'm not being very patient right now. Patience is a virtue. Let me sit here and take a deep breath and calm down. And like, it's not going to change anything for me to be having a little mini tantrum in my head about this right now.
There's so many circumstances. I mean, road rage. I mean,
yes, there's a million and one circumstances where stressors are going to present themselves. And these tools regulate your stress tolerance. That's what this is all about. Achieving attachment security is all about regulating your stress tolerance. And yes, it mostly is around intimacy, but you can still strengthen that muscle in a variety of situations. And then I will say, when you get into another relationship, it will shine a light on what work you still have left to do. But if you are really using the tools that I teach, you should be in a good place.
Yeah.
Because I've seen them work in relationships. I've seen them work with single people. I was single when I used the tools, and I have been very successful in my second marriage.
Yeah.
So
it'd be like a fitness competitor only working out when they have a competition coming up.
Yeah.
Right? Like a fitness competitor has to stay in shape for all time.
All the time. Yeah.
They just maybe when a competition is coming up, may work a little bit harder at it and see where they need to improve.
Absolutely. Because then it's like going to a competition, where you're like a power lifter and you're like going to just try to lift the weight in the moment. That's not going to help you.
Yeah.
You need to be lifting weights by yourself most days of the week.
That's right. That's right. Okay, second question that the same person is asking. I've also learned that FAs only attract DAs or narcissists. My personal history has proven that. Besides just becoming more secure, as a single woman, how do I actually attract a secure person? I know you can ask the question, what did you do to get over your last relationship? And that's supposed to show if they are avoidant. But is there anything else?
Well, yeah, you look at the first conflict and how they handle it. And you look at early signs, early red flags, consistency in communication. How do they talk about other people? How do they treat other people? Like the waitress at dinner. There's all sorts of things you can be a little bit more vigilant about that are going to reveal parts of someone's attachment and their character. Now, is it true that most people show up really well in the first few months? Yeah, because you're inundated with oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin, and if you're a man, vasopressin, right? And all of those things make you feel all good inside. But eventually those are going to wear off and people reveal their true behavior. So just attach slowly.
Yeah, I always say
just attach slowly.
Accountability at the end of the day, like
it's huge. It's everything.
Your first conflict, how do they show accountability?
Right. I remember Donald and I's first conflict, and immediately, I just told him how I felt, and immediately he was like, "Wow, I understand. Like, I'm really sorry that I impacted you in that way. I certainly never want to make you feel that way. I care way too much about you to make you feel that way, and I see how I could have been interpreted in the way that you have interpreted it, and I'm going to really make sure that doesn't happen again."
And see how that creates intimacy? So it's like, I mean, because something similar happened with Josh and me as well during our first conflict, because I was like, no, this ain't going to fly. And he came back and was like, oh gosh, no, I can't lose this person, and really like not necessarily fell on the sword so much, but really just showed up in a way that was like, I messed up and I'm really sorry for that. And what can I do to make it right? And it really, I've said this before on other episodes, if nothing, it catapulted our relationship to the next level, which is really what should happen when a first conflict takes place. And that's where, you have to use your own discernment in deciding whether that you walk away from that first conflict feeling better and closer. And if you don't, then that's a red flag.
It is the biggest red flag. And so, but attach slowly, right? Go slow, and look for the small things and check in with your nervous system. That's why the nervous system work and the emotional completion work and emotional processing to completion is so very important, because when we process our emotions through to completion, we take the quote signal value of the emotion that has a very strong message. Emotions are messengers. They are here to tell us something. And when we ignore them or we disconnect from them or we override them with our attachment anxiety, then we don't take the proper message that they're trying to tell us about what we are experiencing in this early stage with someone else. Right. And so just, be aware, learn what feels good to you in your own body, and do the nervous system work to get really attuned with your own body so that you can understand those signals and differentiate between excitement and fear in an early stage situation.
And you can do that whether you're single or in a relationship.
That's right.
So this one's a little long too, but I think it's important because it's in relation to the DA and sex.
Okay.
So it says, I'm curious about the connection between dismissive avoidance and sex. I don't know that the two men I have in mind are DA, but I suspect from behavior patterns and negative conflict cycles between us that they may be. Both men seem to almost be hyper-focused on sex. Neither were able to describe any significant romantic feelings for me, even after months of the relationship time. Neither wanted to talk about future plans, but made lots of references to just having fun and not overthinking it. When I would talk about being intentional about building a long-term relationship, they would both avoid it. Both would deflect when I brought up the lack of emotional intimacy.
Classic.
Both would withdraw until they wanted sex, or at least that seemed to be the reason they would re-engage. Situationship, sis. I know men sometimes feel like sex is an emotional connection, sometimes the only emotional connection they're willing to entertain. Is this perhaps a red flag for someone with dismissive avoidance attachment style, or is this not related to attachment at all?
No, it's definitely related to attachment. Everything that you describe is very typical, very classic DA behavior. And a lot of dismissive avoidance, the only type of intimacy that they feel safe with is sex. And so, there will be a very big lack of emotional intimacy, but then they're somehow still available for the physical intimacy. So that's what feels safest for them. And so, it's definitely a common DA trait, but I think other attachment styles are possibly can be in a stage in their life where maybe they're just not looking for something serious for a variety of reasons. I would say that's probably least likely for the AP, but I've seen FAs maybe go through stages where they're just like, I'm just here to have fun. I'm not ready for anything serious. And, that's more dependent on their life circumstances, but also it can be them sliding into more of their avoidant side of their attachment. So bottom line is, whether it comes from attachment or not, it's not okay.
Right. And so if you're wanting more, then demand more.
Yeah. Say, I want more. And then if they can't give it to you, walk.
Get out. Exactly. Okay. So I'm going to do a few more. And this one, this includes neurodivergency. So,
okay.
Looking for insight from preferably those with adult ADHD and bonus points if they're also DA. When confronted with my DA boyfriend, when I confronted my DA boyfriend, he didn't send me a simple text letting me know he could no longer hang out and or need space. He can't talk on the phone, very simple things that should only require courtesy text that I would have no problem honoring. He will ghost me and instead say, my mind doesn't think like that. To me, that feels like an excuse and that I'm not a priority, but I don't know. Is that truly how a mind with ADHD works sometimes? I just can't relate because he and my kids are always at the forefront of my mind.
I'd be willing to say that's much more related to dismissive avoidant attachment than it is ADHD or ADD. I very rarely see DAs with ADD, and the ones that I see, they turn out to be FA.
Yeah.
Because see, here's the thing. I have this hypothesis. I talk about it a lot. I could be wrong, but I think the scientific community needs to look into it, is that most ADHD is childhood attachment CPTSD that we can also call fearful avoidance. And it impairs working memory of the brain. But the DA attachment system, their attention system is wired towards self. So when he says, I don't think that way, he doesn't think about you. But that is because of his attachment. That's not necessarily because he has ADD.
Right.
Like a lot of people, I would consider myself pretty adult ADHD, but shocker, you know, I had CPTSD, right?
Right. Well, it makes sense because it's
and
the disorganized.
I still think about my partner all the time.
Yeah, but it makes sense that it would be the FA because it's the disorganized attachment.
Yeah.
And if you think about ADD and ADHD, it's a very disorganized type of.
Yes. There's executive function deficits for sure. And related to attention. DAs actually are hyperfixators, but they hyperfixate on everything but their intimate partner because the intimate partner is what triggers them. And so, sometimes I see DAs come and they have all these diagnoses, ADHD, like autism and ADHD, and they have all these things. And again, I'm not a clinical psychologist, but I did train alongside them and run a program for clinical psychologists. And so I'm pretty familiar with, a lot of clinical work. And of course, I'm a human behavior specialist, and so I can't give any diagnosis or say for sure. But a lot of folks, I'm just like, gosh, this is just attachment related.
Yeah.
Because lo and behold, when they do the work, they come back and they're like, their symptoms are, quote, gone. And I'm like, if this was a true neurodivergency situation, that wouldn't change just by working on your attachment, right? It wouldn't. And so, I've had clients, some I can think in my head in particular, where lo and behold, oh my gosh, I'm not really ADHD anymore. It's like, yeah, you probably never were. You probably took 3-minute screener that somebody with, a 1-year master's gave you.
Or took a test online.
Or took some, test online. Or just you talk to somebody. And so here's the thing, guys. It never used to be where people with like 1-year graduate training could make these types of diagnoses. Right. It used to never be that way. And then until we had a mental health crisis in America and we just had to triage people. Yeah. And we created these degrees that like, that
anybody could get?
That anybody could get. I don't want to say that. No, not anybody.
I said it.
But people that normally wouldn't have cut it in a brick and mortar master's program in psychology or a doctoral program in psychology that they would never be able to get in, are giving out diagnoses using screener tools instead of doing thorough assessments and clinical interviews and looking at, correlation between, the interviews and the assessments. And they're just not, you're not going to get the same type of assessment as you are going to a trained doctoral level clinical psychologist who is going to be able to do a real like detailed clinical interview and give you more valid and reliable assessments and then take their time really looking through that data to make a diagnosis.
Right.
We're much too quick to say, well, I behave this way, this way, this way. Okay, well, you have ADHD.
Right.
And that to me is doing people a grand disservice.
Well, we've talked about this before. I mean, the internet, can it misdiagnoses a lot of people.
If I had a nickel for every person that said I took an attachment quiz online, and it said I was secure,
or if I had a nickel for every time I went to Google and was like, "These are my symptoms. What's wrong with me? You're dying."
But I lit my girlfriend's car on fire, and I don't know why I did that. Like, well, you're not really secure, I think the test was wrong.
Yeah.
It's just because I used to teach the science of psychometrics. It was the class I hated the most to teach, and it was the class that students hated the most to take because it's boring AF. It's all statistics. It's all math.
I loved statistics.
Well, then maybe you would have liked it. But, they had a project where they had to build an assessment. And here's the thing about psychologists. I will die on the hill that psychologists are the most rigorously trained scientists because we have to measure things that we cannot see. We have to measure things that are fickle. We have to understand error, like error of self-report bias, where people may not remember or people aren't paying attention to the test. And we have to create assessments that factor in all of those things.
Nuances,
all of those nuances. And it takes years to build an assessment.
That's why she doesn't have an attachment quiz, guys.
Yeah, that's why
that's one question I can answer for everyone because that question gets asked a lot.
Because it would take me 3 years to build it, and it would take a lot of time. I would have to hire a panel of experts in attachment and have them assess for content validity. I would have to create questions and run reliability analyses after giving them to sample populations. And then I would have to run, oh my gosh, we'd have to use the multi-trait, multi-level matrix on the dang thing, which is a very complicated statistical model to look for divergence in questions, to look for, emergence in questions, and then we'd have to give it to more populations and then rerun the analyses and then we may have to do factor analytical modeling on it. It's just so statistically and scientifically complicated to get a final result. And then even these assessments that have been around for years, they eventually get revised. So you will see, if you see an assessment that has a -R at the end of it, that stands for revised, meaning that because it has been around for so long, it might be essentially outdated for culture and for, traits that we're seeing emerge due to culture and the influence of culture. And so they have to redo the assessment. They have to give it out to more populations, rerun these analyses. It takes forever. Then you have to write a paper on it. Then you have to get it published. Then you have to do revision. You have to do revisions in the publishing process. We're talking 3 to 4 years.
And a whole other full-time job.
I don't have time.
Well, and I think this just goes to show that you're not clickbait, right? Like you speak the truth when it comes to the science. You're not willing to just throw some, test out there that has no credibility or no validity. you trust the science, you know the science, you know what it takes to really prove the science and the statistics that it takes. And so, I think there are a lot of people out there that are just like, well, here's an attachment quiz as clickbait to kind of pull you in. And I think that says a lot about you because you're not willing to do that.
I'm not willing to do that. And that's why I use a qualitative methodology, a version of the adult attachment interview. And sometimes I do a little bit more of a semi-structured interview, and I poke around a little bit more because, I know what I'm doing. You know, I can look for things. And if somebody is, say, a little bit unclear between like an FA or a DA, then I can ask some more nuanced questions that I know are going to give me more of a straight answer. And so, I prefer a qualitative assessment or an interview assessment over a self-report quantitative assessment because quantitative assessments have more limitations to them. You have to ask what's on the questionnaire in the exact way it's asked. You can't poke around, right? You can't get nuanced or else you're essentially invalidating the assessment.
And I don't know how you would do that with human beings.
Well, there's pros and cons for quantitative versus qualitative measurement, and that's a whole another podcast. Yeah. But what I will say is the quizzes online are junk. They're garbage. They're clickbait. Don't use them. And there's even, I'm not going to call them out by name. No, I'm not doing that. There is an organization specifically dedicated to attachment that has a, quote, online quiz, and it is garbage. People come to me after taking it all the time, and they're like, but it said attachment in the name, and like their organization says attachment. And I'm like, I get that. But I've also looked at the credentials of the people that run it. They wouldn't have taken psychometrics in their training program.
Right.
So they probably don't know that they're doing something wrong.
Right.
They don't, and that's the sad thing is that then we're misleading people, and I hate that.
Yeah, and you don't want to do that. And this is why I just, again, I stand by what it is you're doing because you're doing it the right way. Like you're not just trying to just get anybody just to,
for sure not.
You're trying to genuinely help people in the right way. So, just know that, everyone. I'm glad that I brought that question up because that maybe is like the overall question that I see the most. Does Dr. Hensley have an attachment quiz? So there you go. And let's wrap up with one more question, and then we'll get started on something else. Okay. When it comes to dorsal vagal shutdown, is this something that's commonly happens to DAs or FAs or both? I experience it sometimes when triggered, but my ex experienced it upon every perceived conflict. My ex is neurodivergent, and I know there is a correlation there. They have very dismissive and invalidating responses to conflict and are highly conflict avoidant. AKA will shut down all the time when challenged on these things. Unfortunately for them, I'm proficient in meditation, conflict resolution, and am an SLP with a background in linguistics. It didn't go well, to say the least. They recently discarded me with zero communication about any relationship concerns from their end and zero options to repair and reconnect after 8 years of being together.
Wow.
Like nothing for the entire 8 years. They did enmesh their sister into the family. They did enmesh their sister and her family into our relationship and got her to comment on our dynamics, which I found incredibly painful considering the complete. Sorry, I had to screenshot this. They did enmesh their sister and her family in our which I found incredibly painful considering the complete absence of communication with me. It all ended with a rug pull and then basically abandoning our life together, sabotaging any future, and going on what felt like a state holiday where they wouldn't communicate anything other than admin. Okay, this is getting confusing. Anyway, the point of the question is, when it comes to dorsal vagal shutdown, is this something that commonly happens to DAs or FAs or both?
It can happen to both. DAs live there a lot. DAs can go up there quicker and stay there much longer than FAs. FAs will visit that space and then come back down.
Yeah.
And so DAs, they can live their life in a very dorsal vagal dominated state of functional freeze, where, more freeze than fight or flight, I guess. Because functional freeze is that blended state of like bouncing between freeze or among freeze and fight and flight. And so, yes, DAs, it's a very common space for them to be. Again, it is hard to tease out which could be neurodivergent related and what is attachment related.
Right.
But yes, DAs, that's their primary trauma response is freeze. And FAs can have it too, especially FAs that lean more avoidant. I would say FAs go into the freeze response more when they've reached a state of hopelessness in their relationship and they get into their own shutdown, which I term the FA wall of pain. And that's oftentimes dominated by a freeze space where they're just like, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm really sorry that happened. And I'm so, for all of you guys that submitted these questions, these are really painful things, and I'm really sorry that you have experienced them. I know that I'm very direct and I don't mince words because I'm not going to tell you to try to make something work with someone who I feel like has no capacity or who is telling you that they, in essence, their behavior, telling you that they don't want to make it work.
Yeah.
But I do have compassion for what it feels like. I was with a DA for 1.5 years and it was a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could not imagine, just specifically on that one, because I know I got a little confusing at the end. I mean, let's just address the fact that this person discarded you after 8 years together. That is extremely painful.
Yeah. And I think at some point we have to stop feeling sorry for them because we know that it is a capacity issue and we know that their nervous system is sort of directing these behaviors. But there's also some character overlap here. And I say this with cheating. Like to me, there's a character component to cheating.
Yeah.
There's people that are not capable of it because the content of their character would not allow their conscience to function in an affair situation. And then we have people who can override their conscience. And is there a correlation between that and the dorsal vagal response? Of course. But it doesn't mean we dismiss it or that we excuse it. That's unexcusable.
Well, and
inexcusable.
And I think it's important also to stop blaming yourself for something like that.
Yes,
because
no,
that
absolutely
is,
not.
That under any circumstance is not okay. It's not okay to discard somebody after 8 years. I mean, even if maybe you flew off the handle and had a moment of weakness and got really reactive, I still can't, I mean, depending on how reactive you got, but I'm just giving an example. I just don't think that pure like discard is ever okay. I mean, we've talked about that. Like
unless there's really serious abuse, that's the only time I would say you can discard somebody without,
with no,
because
like,
it's not safe.
Right. With total blocking and just, yes. Agreed.
Otherwise, any long-term relationship is owed closure.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. So on that note, if you are looking for closure, or better yet, if you're looking for your attachment security, please go see Dr. Hensley at thelovedoc.com. And of course, we cannot end this without thanking our affiliate, Armra. We love you, Armra. I have in my water per usual. They actually have they have a new flavor coming out, the pineapple flavor.
I can't wait.
Which, I mean, honestly, I know I say it about every flavor that they have because I did the apricot and then I did the peach, and the peach is next level. But man, pineapple
is something special.
Yeah, watermelon's special too. But
I love the watermelon.
Yeah, but the pineapple might be where it's at. And of course, as you know, it's an overall supplement. Helps with the gut, the skin.
Yes.
Mental clarity.
Bovine colostrum. And so it's going to help with your skin, hair, nails, the lining of your gut. And we all know that hot people have tummy issues. So
I feel like everybody has tummy issues nowadays because everybody has some level of trauma.
But it has helped me so much, and I am such a big fan. And especially if you're not a water drinker because you just need some flavor, it's just the perfect amount of flavor.
I will say Armra is the one supplement I think that I will use for the rest of my life.
The rest of my days.
And
absolutely.
I mean that. And so for all of our listeners, you can go there if you're a first-time purchaser and get 15% off with code LOVEDOC at checkout.
We also have another affiliate we need to thank today for being an affiliate, the Bed Jet.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to tell y'all about the Bed Jet.
Oh, me too. So I've had a Bed Jet for about 2 years, and it is the most fantastic purchase I have ever made in my entire life. So I was so excited. I have been stalking BedJet to try to make them an affiliate of this podcast. It is a temperature controlled unit for your bed. So you can be the exact perfect temperature at any given minute in your bed, and it doesn't blow on you. It blows through this like cloud mechanism, and it just, you can set a biorhythm where it's like it changes temperature throughout the night, because I start really cold at night, so I get in really warm at the like 104 level temp, and then it slowly goes down. And when you look at how your circadian rhythm works, you cool off as you fall asleep, and that actually helps you fall asleep. And so what was it? How many people reported improved sleep?
A 94% survey showed that people had improved sleep.
So 94% of people reported improved sleep,
Yes.
which is amazing for any research study, honestly.
And it's quiet. It was formulated by a NASA engineer. And if you're worried about price, because it is an investment.
It's
the
an
BedJet
investment.
is an investment. Like my
But they
husband,
stand by their product.
Yeah, they have a 2-year warranty, 60-day no hassle return. But my husband got it for me for a Christmas present, and it has been a game changer in my sleep, especially as I approach perimenopause and I have some night sweats. That flick on of that cooling temperature.
Yeah, they have a dry function too that will keep you dry.
Listen, we only want to talk about products that we stand by.
100%.
And sleep is the foundation of everything. You're talking about the way that you eat, the way that you function, the way that you're able to work out, and your mental clarity.
Increases your self-regulatory ability so you can be a secure partner in your relationships.
Amen. And let's all be honest, a lot of people in relationships, in marriages, end up being in separate beds for whatever reason.
A lot of times because they can't agree on the temperature.
Right. That's right. And so BedJet also has a dual mechanism where you can control one side and your partner can control the other side at whatever temperature you want. And so we love BedJet so much. So we do not have a code, but they have a link. It's bedjet/thelovedoc. Please go visit them. You can receive $50 off. Yep. And believe us when we say, if you invest in the BedJet, it will be one of the best investments that you ever make.
You will never go back. I now have a set in the camper, and I'm about to buy a set to put in a suitcase for when I travel, because I just feel like I can't live without it now. Isn't that?
Girl is bougie.
Once you go BedJet, you can never go back.
Once you go bougie, you can't go back. And I love her for it. So, thank you, BedJet, so much. Thank you, Armra. And thank you to all of you all that have submitted your questions and continue to really just try to be better. You know, to be better for your loved ones, to be better for your romantic relationships.
You are the light of the world.
You are. And we might do this more often, because I loved this.
I did too. It was fun.
I think it's really valuable to our listeners too, to have these, burning questions answered, in real time.
Yes.
So thank you to everyone. If you want to submit a question, please go to our Patreon's account, submit that question there at patreons/thelovedoc.com, and I will see it. And I promise you guys, I read everything. I read all of your emails. I read all of your comments, and we're so thankful for this community, and we definitely thank you for tuning in. Yes, absolutely. So go see Doc at thelovedoc.com. Check out her services, and until next time, peace, love, and perspective.